Thanks everyone for being here, and I'd like to start off by thanking everyone for covering the team this year. I know, in these jobs, whether it's management, player, coach, or media member, there's a lot of travel, long hours, weird hours, and that means time away from friends, family, and that's extremely precious time. And so we appreciate that you spent it covering us and bringing the stories of our players and team to the fans. So and then to the fans, I do want to thank them for sticking with us this year. I know it wasn't the most successful year on the ice, and some tough games, but whether it's an away game or at the United Center, they always showed up for us, always supported, and we certainly felt that, and so it's very, very much appreciated. As far as the season, obviously we finished where we finished. It was a tough year from that standpoint. Having said that, we did see some exciting things along the way. Obviously, some young players in the lineup that spent most of the year in the NHL, and then some that made some appearances along the way that I think show some pretty solid excitement for what is to come and what we can become down the road. I think this season showed there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of steps we need to take and steps that we're gonna work to make good on in the future here, and we wanna take the next step here and progress. We don't want to finish where we finished this year moving forward. That's not what we're looking to do anymore, and so it's something that we're going to be conscious of moving forward, and hopefully we can see a little more success and some positive steps in the standings and on the ice here moving forward. So with that, I'll open up to questions.
What did you think of Connor's season? That all the expectations outside, but for him to do what he did on the ice while also handling all the off-ice circus, how do you think he handled it all?
Yeah, I think it was incredible. I think the expectation, the weight that was put on his shoulders, just given his profile walking into the league, it's really difficult to handle. I don't think anyone can adequately quantify the degree of difficulty of what he had to deal with off the ice to then go and perform on the ice. And we worked with him to make it as seamless as possible, and for the most part, I think we accomplished that. But having said that, he's an 18-year-old player that had to go through more media attention than any player in recent memory, and probably more than any player entering the league ever, just given the social media age and the age that we're in right now. And so I thought it was extremely impressive. And then on the ice, he certainly offensively delivered everything that you would want out of a first year 18-year-old player and someone of his skill set. And so I was really, really impressed. I don't think many other players could walk in and do that and do what he did. And so it was extremely impressive. And then the injuries as well were that we sustained, that didn't make anything any easier on him. It only increased the offensive burden that he had to carry and he had to shoulder. And when your depth is depleted, it gives the opposition a more specific subset of players to focus on, and obviously him being one of the top ones to focus on made his life even harder on the ice. And so to produce the way he did, I think was outstanding.
Going back to your opening statement, kind of about how it's maybe time to take the next step here. What is a realistic expectation for next season in terms of place in the standings, finish, remaining in the playoff line, etc.?
Yeah, I think that's as we stand here today, it's probably really hard to put a pinpoint on, but there needs to be a progression. I don't know how many points or standing slots that is, but we can't finish second last in the league. I think the standard has to be raised, the expectation has to be raised. Through that, accountability will be raised, and so and that's the nature of the path we're on. Eventually, we have to start making positive steps, and I think we've reached that point. I'm not saying that we're going to be competing for playoffs or Stanley Cups or anything this next year. I don't know how realistic that is. It's the best league in the world, best players and best teams in the world, and so to say we're just going to improve a whole great deal in the standings is difficult, but we need to be better, and it's time to take a step forward. Last year we finished, previous to this year, we finished third last, we finished second last. That can't happen again. We need to start moving up and onward, and so that's the exciting part of the process, is that it may not be a huge leap, but there has to be some positive momentum to be carried forward starting next year.
What's your some strong opinions about what the team needs? Some said identity pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Some said we need guys that are going to be here longer than like a 1 year or 2 year contract to carry the culture. Or maybe we need an a-hole in the room.
A what?
An a-hole. A jerk.
Oh.
A jerk.
Okay.
Yeah, just about culture, about accountability, and like having guys that are going to have a little more talent, have a little more juice, to kind of achieve that progression that you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I believe there is a team building aspect to taking the next step. Having said that, it's you're somewhat bound by how much you can change and how much you can add, and then, even though we do want to take a positive step, you have to be realistic with also an eye to the future on not going out and signing contracts that are going to, again, limit all the work that we've put in over the last couple of years. We've experienced a lot of pain and losses, and there is, you do get a favorable draft slot because of that. But looking forward, we can't do something that's going to, eventually down the road hurt us in that this talent that is coming up that may or may not be ready for NHL action. We can't do something that's going to hinder our ability to, allow them a roster spot when they're ready, or, when contracts come up, to keep those players. And so we have to be smart about that. But it's early to say what kind of player we need or what kind of player we can get or anything like that, or who's going to be on the team or not on the team. We have to get to the summer, get to around that draft free agency time to see who's actually available, because that's going to dictate a lot of what we do. We can say, I want this, I want this, I want that, but if none of that's available, then there's nothing we can do. And so there's definitely a willingness to create some meaningful battles in training camp. We want competition, and we want the best players for those spots to win those roster spots. No one's going to walk in here, next fall anointed a spot. They've got to come earn it. They got to come take it, and that's part of the resetting of this. We've talked about resetting the culture and resetting the way we think about things and do things, and that starts with on day one next year in training camp for guys having to come and earn a spot and no one being given anything.
To make that step, that higher expectations, do you feel like it falls on the accountability of this group, or how much control do you have it on adding better players, or how do you influence that it becomes like a realistic expectation next season?
Yeah, no, I think it's if it starts from the top, it has to start with me, on down to the coaches to players, and it has to cascade down that way. And again, are we going to bring in some new players? I think that's likely. Yeah, there's going to be turnover, and so who's available, what you can get. Again, that's yet to be determined, and there's a lot more that goes into that than just wanting certain players or wanting a type of player. It's got to fit short, long term. It's got to fit, contractually. It has to make sense. Having said that, we want to create battles. We want in training camp competition for spots, and that comes with a little bit of addition and also honesty with the players, both veteran and young, that you're all fighting for the same spot, and your experience level, your age, your wherever you're at in your career, whether you're new here or not, that's not going to play a role into if you're on the team come day one. You're going to determine if you're on the team based on your play in camp. And so, of course, a part of that is the players we bring in. Again, it's difficult in this league to take a huge leap forward, but I think we just need to see some positive progression here, and also be realistic about what that means. I think positive progression next year is likely an increase in our win total, our point total, but not being, setting the bar too high where, it's not realistic to say we're gonna, go win the Stanley Cup or something. Like that's obviously the goal every year, but we also have to be realistic with where we're at and work to that point where we can be fortunate enough to be in that conversation. That's going to take time, but it has to start one step at a time, and that starts next year in training camp.
But the draft is still the best man up when you're not looking for any particular position players or anything at this time. So that high speed, high compete guy that you really had.
Best player available. Yeah, no, that's a pretty consistent philosophy from myself, is that the draft, you don't get to pick and choose what that most talented player is and what position they're at, or how big they are, how small they are, how what hand they are, what position they play. You only get one shot to grab the best player, and you just have to grab the best player and then figure it out from there. So that's what we'll do.
So your criteria for the best players still sort of the same like last year. You were very pumped to get Allingworth with the 19th pick. I mean, you've got a guy like that as opposed to a big, strong D-man. You might say, well, one's just as good as the other, or they're just different quantities.
Yeah, they're different, but that's the work you do all year to build your draft board, and the work that we'll do here moving forward is build that draft board accordingly, and take all those into consideration. Whether the profile of the player, the different positions of players, that kind of thing, is just making sure that we're building it in accordance to that philosophy, is that the best players are ranked accordingly, and not giving any special ranking or bumping a guy up the list because he plays a certain position, but he might not be as talented as someone else. So
between opening up spots to bring in some people this summer and also integrating in prospects, you're probably going to a lot of guys in this team not come back. Were there any difficult conversations today with guys who have been here for a few years about that probably aren't going to be with the team?
Yeah, no, there weren't many difficult conversations, because I also don't think we've necessarily fully made up our mind on like these players aren't coming back, or this one. We've got to be deliberate and do our full assessment on that, before we tell people in April that they're not part of something in September. Like that's a process we have to run, and so we'll do that. But having said that, I think if we want to take a step, we just that's something that's a realistic part of that is probably some new players, new blood to give us that boost.
Luke was saying that you have talked about that with him. Obviously, you're saying you don't know who exactly will be available, that you have kind of assured him that you will be bringing in some good talent for next year to help out.
Well, yeah, like again, it's just this is all so speculative at this point. Is like, yeah, we would like to bring in some players to help push the team forward to some extent, but what that looks like is you just don't know who's going to be available, and so I think that would be spinning wheels to for us to talk with the staff, or talk even internally on okay, well, sign this player or trade for that player. Like, it's just so early that you got to get to July 1 for the free agents, and then you got to let all these other teams finish to talk, about what their plans are for the off season. So, unfortunately, we ended as early as you can, and there's going to be some teams that play much longer and much further into the early summer months that you let them be and let them focus on what's important, and then when the time's right, then you can talk about off season plans. But I think it's a very general idea at this point, and we would like to support the group a little bit and create some roster battles. So that's something we'll look at, when the time's right in a month or two.
Where do you feel like you are cap-wise and on paper, since you have a ton of cap space for at least a few more years
Mhm.
until Connor and those contracts come up? Where do you see you need to go with that, or how much can you spend in the short term and balancing that with those other long-term contracts?
Yeah, no, we're in a really good spot contractually and salary cap wise. We've got a ton of flexibility, a ton of space. Again, as I've said in the past, and this certainly holds, is that you don't want to do anything that hurts you long term. You don't, because the salary cap is unforgiving, and once you give that space up, you can't get it back. It's really hard to move contracts that are no longer desirable to you, and we don't want to get into that business. We'd like to be responsible with it, and thread that needle as best we can while balancing short and long-term objectives. But that's difficult. And the other thing too is, we do have a lot of young players, but we also want to make sure they're ready. And so it's not a case where we can just integrate a bunch of young players every single year. If they're ready, then we're not going to block them out. If they beat guys out, they're going to play. But we have to create some battles. We got to create some competition at camp, and in doing so, we still have to keep in mind our longer term objective of being responsible with our contracts and on the cap, while also trying to bring in some players to help the push this thing forward next year.
Are you having an internal tug of war with Alex Vlasic? It feels like there are some guys that are going to be under the second contract in a couple years, but this feels like the first maybe bigger decision that you might have if he really has solidified himself as a core member of this team.
We're chatting. We're obviously we love Alex and love the path he's on, and so we're working through that. But we've got lots of time. So
I've seen a lot of push from Vlasic and other young blue liners,
Mhm.
including Korchinski and Kaiser. I just want to know, what do you still want to see from them, and how does Nolan Allen fit into that picture next season?
Yeah, with young players, especially defense, it's not an easy transition to make from the amateur ranks, whether it's college or junior into the NHL. And I thought obviously Alex Vlasic benefited greatly from experiencing that year in Rockford, and that was a nice step for him to take on his way to the NHL and having a really solid year this season. So it's just about getting stronger, getting that experience, and especially for a guy like Kevin, he's 19 years old, I don't know if he's the youngest, but one of the youngest defensemen in the NHL. It's just about strength and getting used to that grind of the NHL and pro hockey season, where there's not a lot of time to catch your breath, and you've got to do a lot of work in the summer to prepare yourself for that grind. And so that's the progression that you want to see. And then also, once they get back, and you'd like to see that work, in the summer manifest itself in taking a step on the ice. Sorry, what was the other?
I was asking about Kaiser and Allen.
Yeah, same thing. It's they're early in their pro careers, and I think we're on Wyatt. We're really happy with the progression that obviously he came into camp and made the team out of camp, and hit a little bit of a hurdle that we thought it was best to go back to Rockford and play some meaningful minutes to just get that confidence back and play in every situation and utilize the development situation in Rockford to do that. And I thought it went really, really well. He came back up and played really well for us, I thought. And he's back down in Rockford now to help them on a playoff push and continue his strong play back down there. And so hopefully he carries that momentum into the summer and comes to camp ready to take a spot. And then Nolan, he's had a strong year in Rockford, younger than some of these, than a guy like Wyatt certainly. But I thought he had a good year coming into pro. He's a little banged up right now, so hopefully he can get back, in time for playoffs. But again, it's just about these guys experiencing that new pro hockey grind and experiencing the players and what it's like to play against men, and then take that into the offseason, take that education and use it to their advantage in their training and in how they prepare for next year to take another step and fight for spots at the NHL level.
Are you happy with the way that the goaltending's playing? That you've got Rafik here for 2 years as a healthy veteran.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Soderblom there. You've got down the chain. You've got Comessa. You've got Jackson. You've got Stauber.
Mm-hmm.
Farther down, you've got Guyan, who maybe
Yep.
Scott Strummy is the best of the prospects. Are you happy with the way that they're timing out and the way they might?
Yeah. The goaltending, I think, more than most positions is the timeline's a little less known, and so it's just about putting them in situations that will keep challenging them, but making positive strides. And so I think from the NHL, it was a tough spot this year. We struggled defensively. There's no secret about that, and so we didn't exactly put our goaltenders in situations to succeed. But I thought they battled through, and Peter in particular had a fantastic year. Staying healthy was a big thing for him, and so excited for him to carry that momentum to World Championships, and then into the summer, into next year. As far as Rockford, I think the goaltending's been really, really solid. Jackson Stauber of late has been fantastic. I think he's got a nice little, string of victories here going for quite some time, which is great. And Drew's been rock solid. It's Jackson's second year pro and Drew's first year pro, and those first year pros for goalies it's a big adjustment, and so I thought he's handled it very well. And then I think Jackson, especially in the second half, has taken a nice step forward, and so it's been really, really positive. And then Adam's doing really well in the USHL, and he'll go to Minnesota Duluth next year, and hopefully again higher level, take another step, challenge himself, and then we'll continue to reevaluate everyone's path at the end of the year.
What kind of feedback did you give Michael within that?
We didn't really have the traditional exit with him, just because he went down to Rockford, and so he's still got some time to play. So we haven't necessarily had the same type of conversation with him that we've had with some of the other players that are done now. He's still playing, and so we'll let him do that. I think the brief message to him when we sent him down was that we want him to go down. We want him to dominate. Want him to help carry that team. I think the message to a couple of the guys that went down to Rockford after the trade deadline was go down and dominate, because you can. You have the ability to do that and carry the team as far as you can, because it's great experience to play postseason hockey. There's a really good opportunity for some young players down there to experience that and to play really big roles in that environment. So that's a really big positive for all of them who are eligible to do so. But as far as Lucas and his off-season conversation, we'll have that once his season's over.
With Ryan Green going back to school, what were those conversations like after his season?
Yeah, our philosophy on our prospects is that we want them to have all the information in terms of where we believe they're at developmentally, what the pros and cons are to, in this case, leaving school, staying in school, of which there are both in every scenario. And so, but then them to own that decision. You know, it's their career, it's their life, and we want them to own the decision for where they think is best to develop for NHL hockey. And Ryan decided that it was best for him to go back to BU and play a big role, and we fully support that decision. And he ran a really thorough process in coming to that conclusion, and so we fully support it, and we'll be right there by his side next year.
Korchinski said he thought he had an up and down season, which is normal as a
Right.
19-year-old, but it was a unique situation because he wasn't eligible for the AHL. So how did you guys manage him, like if he was going through some rough patches and you didn't want him to feel totally overwhelmed because the AHL wasn't an option? Like, how did you guys work with him this year?
Yeah, you know.
Confidence wasn't affected
Yeah,
for a while.
yeah. You know, I think that's just the communication with the coaching staff, specifically Kevin Dean. You know, making sure he got the information necessary to see where, you know, if he did have a tough night, why? How do you adapt? How do you move forward and rectify that? You know, the one thing you can't avoid is the grind of the season catching up to you. And at 19 years old, you know, first year in the NHL, you know, a very emotional, tough year for him. You know, and so that's going to catch up to you, and that's eventually that tank is going to hit empty, and you know, that's not, you can't coach your way out of that. You know, but that's good for him to experience, and it's good information for him to have to understand how he felt at the end of the year, and how, you know, you use that off season to build yourself up and build your body up to the point where you can withstand a full season in pro hockey. And so, you know, it's just constant communication, making sure that they understand the positives, the negatives, and where they can improve, and keep them on a positive trajectory moving forward.
Talk about how some people, obviously everybody has to earn their place
Mhm.
next year, especially with all these roster battles and everything else. How did you feel about Ethan Del Mastro? He's been outstanding in Rockford. He just won Rookie of the Year honors amongst the team.
Mhm.
He obviously came off, played a couple games, and then was on his back for the playoffs. Do you see him as a guy that is going to make that breakthrough and be in Chicago next year?
Yeah, I think you know, that's look, the reason he came up at the end of the year was because he played, and it was a reward. He played so well down in Rockford, and that first year pro he did, you know, he's an AHL All-Star, and so that was a reward for his season. And you know what, if he puts in the work and plays well in camp, then, you know, again, it's open competition. If he's had the type of year that, you know what, he's shown that you know, he can definitely play and excel at the AHL level. AHL to NHL is a different story. You know, that's a big jump. So, you know, it's going to be tough just to make sure that he does enough to make that jump, and us to feel comfortable to put him in there full time. But you know what, he's put in the work down the AHL and done really well. So I'm not ruling anything out.
And then you talked about some of the names that have gone back and then come up. So Classic was last year, and then you had Kaiser, and you've had Reichel. How impressed and how pleased have you been with the staff in Rockford for getting those guys back and kind of putting them in a good spot to come back and contribute?
Yeah, they've been fantastic. Anders and his staff have been incredible in terms of putting our you know, young players, you know, some of the veteran players down there, putting them all in situations to succeed. You know, whether it's the defensemen, it's been primarily defensemen that have gone up and down, but they've really showed positive steps every time they've gone down and come back up. And then, you know, some of the forwards as well. You know, I think the work that they did with you know, Lucas Reichel last year was phenomenal. And he, you know, when he came up to the NHL, he was a difference maker. And, you know, obviously had a little bit of a tough year this year, but went down to Rockford, you know, put in some work and was improved when he did come back up. And so he'll go back into that environment, end on a positive note, and carry that into next year. And so I can't say enough good things about Anders and the staff in Rockford, and how they can take a player and prepare them for us at the NHL level.
You had some second half signings with Nazar, Slaggert,
Mhm.
Lardis. what you see from Nazar and Slaggert, and what's the game plan, for next season
Yep.
for each of those three?
Well, Nick Lardis will be likely back in junior. He's got junior eligibility, so he'll likely be back with Brantford in the OHL. Frank and Landon are in the same boat as everyone else coming to camp next year. They got to come and earn a spot. I thought they both showed very well. Frank only played a couple games, but the type of play that we liked when we drafted him and they showed at Michigan was on display out here. That speed, that getting up ice and creating offensive chances. Breakaway for a goal here, and he could have had one. I don't know how it stayed out in LA, but he had another really good chance there. And then Landon, I just thought he was really solid. Smart hockey player, works really, really hard, and made a pretty seamless transition from college hockey to the NHL. And now it's up to both of them to have great summers and come back again in the fall and show that one of those 12, 13 forward spots should have their name on it. And so that's what we tasked them with, and we look forward to seeing them come back and what kind of performance we get from them in the fall.
Still talk about the creating roster competitions. Is goaltending a position that you look at, or are you set with Peter and Harvey?
It's something we'll definitely assess. We'll take a deep look at, but I wouldn't rule out competition at every position.
Go ahead, Jay.
Sorry. Yeah. Is the plan for development camp still to be off ice?
That's the plan. Yes. Yeah. It'll follow a similar schedule and plan to what we did last year.
We got another draft lottery coming up. We know who number one is.
Do we?
Well,
We went through this last year too.
but I mean, who knows what might happen for you guys? I mean, there was 13.5%
Yep.
chance. You expect to get, regardless of the lottery, an impactful player this year.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. No. It's a look, as painful as the losses and this season was, we look forward and what's ahead next on the calendar is the lottery, and so we've got 13.5% chance, and hopefully we win, and hopefully we move up, or but even if we don't, even if we slide back, we're gonna get a really good player, and it's about collecting talent, collecting pieces, and we're certainly going to do that in a very meaningful way with our first pick. So yeah.
With Luke Richardson, where did you see the biggest growth from him, year 1 to year 2?
I think it's the integration of a lot more of young players. Like that. The first year we didn't necessarily have a ton of young players, and this year was a lot more. Just with Connor, Kevin, Vlas, Kaiser, Lucas. They all started on the team out of camp, and so working through the dynamics of having young players it's not easy. Both in how to handle them on the ice and putting them in situations to succeed, but also within the team concept. It's a balancing act on when to give them more because they just need to experience it versus when to pull back, and so I think it was an education for him, and I thought we saw some positive steps from all of our young players, and so that was very good.
How will you, what metrics will you use to evaluate Luke next season? Like, there were lulls in consistency,
Mhm.
For various reasons. The road, they were really challenged on the road. Like, are you giving them benchmarks for, like, okay, next year I want to see this?
Yeah, no, I think that's something we're gonna have to think through more thoroughly to assess what those benchmarks, as you call them, are, and how that will be evaluated. I think that's an off-season discussion and process that we'll have to run, and then we also have to see what kind of team we enter camp with as well. I think that goes without saying, but you know, I think just better execution. I think it will be an expectation. Better execution in our systems, the accountability within the group when you know, something goes awry are definitely things we'll keep an eye out for. How do you measure that? It's probably more just, you know, the being around and assessing day to day. But you know, in terms of benchmarks and specific things, I think that's just you know, we've got to get to the off season, evaluate that, and then set that up in the off season.
Kyle, when you were talking about prospects like Slaggert and Nazar, and even Connor having good summers, getting ready for training camp, you know, how hands off is the team on letting them do their thing over the summer, or are you getting periodic updates from people like, you know, yeah, Frank's having a great training summer in July?
Yeah.
Or something like that?
Yeah, you naturally just keep tabs on players, and you know, every once in a while maybe just check in how they're doing. But the CBA is pretty clear that we cannot be hands-on from a standpoint of like training them and getting on the ice with them. That's not something that's permitted. But you're constantly checking in and constantly just making sure that they're feeling good, and you know, there's nothing that they're doing without, or you know, any whatever, you know, we can help them with, you know, within the rules that we will. But yeah, you're always keeping tabs.
Do you expect to have a captain next year?
I'm not sure. I think we're gonna figure that out over the summer. Kind of let this year sort of decompress, and then have that conversation in the summer months, I think.
Do you expect Luke's staff to stay the same?
I'd expect so. We haven't had those conversations yet. I haven't even met with Luke to debrief on things, and so that's probably a conversation for another day.
Have you had a chance to kind of look at certain aspects like the power play and say, you know, I want to see this, or like maybe that's a staff change, maybe it's a personnel change?
You know, there are things that come up throughout the year that we do discuss, but in terms of big alterations, big changes, that's an off-season process that we'll run. We'll talk about what worked, what didn't work, you know, what really didn't work, and things that we want to amend moving forward. But those are the off-season conversations that we'll have with the staff, and you know, not necessarily things that have you know, been discussed, you know, in the last few weeks.
And with World Championships coming up, you got a number of players that are going to be participating in that. Any concern about, you know, exposing to that? I mean, I know Kirby Doc seems like a while ago.
Yeah. No. I you know, that's a personal choice for the player, and you know, we didn't play, you know, meaningful games at the end of the year, and if you know, players can go and play some meaningful games, then I think that's a great opportunity. Especially the opportunity to represent someone's country is a huge honor, a huge opportunity, and just a great experience. And so I wouldn't want to take that away from someone. If there were some very, you know, serious injury concerns, you know, specifically if they were leaving here, you know, maybe not feeling 100%, then maybe that's a conversation of rest and recovery, you know, like, do you really, you know, you want to balance that. But if they're leaving here healthy and they want to go play, then I think it's a great opportunity.